3 days into the interior, on the trail of the man who had burned Saltmere, Lovinea stopped reading the dead long enough to look at the boy she had brought into the worst country in the world, and felt the first cold edge of a guilt she did not yet have a name for. His name was Tobin. He was 19. He was a good fighter and getting better, quick with the short blade and quicker to learn, and he had begged to come the way the young beg for the thing that will hurt them. Certain it was an honor, certain he was ready, certain the woman who founded the Still Watch would not have said yes if he could not handle it. She had said yes. That was the part she was turning over now in the gray light, watching him scan the dead ground the way she had taught him. She had said yes because he was good and because the watch needed people, and because you did not build the next generation by keeping them safe on the coast. All true, all reasons. And underneath the reasons, a thing she did not look at directly, she had wanted the company. 3 days alone on this trail, hunting a man through the dead lands, and she had wanted one living face that was not the dead. That was not a reason to bring a 19-year-old into the interior. She knew it. She had done it anyway. "They're thinning ahead," Tobin said quietly, reading the ground. "East, like something pulled them off," the boy went on. "Good, that's good reading," Lovinea said. "It was. What does it mean?" Tobin answered without hesitating. "Something living went through, recently. The dead don't clear a path for themselves." "It means we're close," she said. "Stay on my left, read, don't lead." "And Tobin, when it starts, you do what I say the instant I say it, not after you've decided I'm right. Out here the gap between those two things is how people die." "Yes, ma'am," Tobin said. She believed he meant it. She also knew 19-year-olds, and knew that meaning it and doing it were different countries. She kept that to herself and went east, after the man she was hunting, with the boy on her left and the guilt she would not look at riding quiet in her chest. The interior tested him within the hour, the way it tested everyone, and she watched how he took the test. A drift of the dead crossed their path in a low place where the rock funneled them close. A dozen of the mindless ones, no threat to read but a real threat to touch, and the only way forward was through the gap between them and the rock. Lovinea went still and put a hand out, and Tobin froze with her, and they waited while the dead shuffled past an arm's length away, close enough that the smell of them filled the cut. Tobin's breathing went fast and shallow. She watched him master it, watched him remember the training, slow the breath, hold still, let the dead drift by without ever knowing two living things stood close enough to touch. When the gap opened, she moved and he moved with her, clean, and on the far side he let out a long breath. "You held," she said quietly. "That's the whole craft. Most of the watch is holding still while the worst thing you can imagine walks past. You held." "It's different than the yard," he said. "It's always different than the yard." She kept moving. "That's why the yard isn't the job. Come on, east." She was hunting the warden of the approaches, and she did not know that was his name, and it did not matter, because she would have hunted him by any name. He had come to Saltmere with a wave of the mindless dead and spent them like coins to learn how hard the coast would fight. He had stood at the tree line and watched her bleed to save the town and walked away with the answer, and he had not lost one soldier that mattered to him in the doing of it. She had been 3 weeks understanding what he was: a careful man, a professional. The kind who treated the dead as ammunition and his living troops as capital, and who would never, ever, spend the second to buy something he could get with the first. And her outpost, the monitoring post 3 days east, 3 of her own people whose whole job was to watch this ground and send word when the dead gathered wrong, had gone silent in the exact window when its silence let Saltmere burn. She did not believe that was chance. She believed the post had been silenced, so the warden's question could be asked without the coast getting the warning that would have changed the answer. So she was going to the post, to learn what happened to her people, and the warden was somewhere on the same road, fleeing east toward whatever he served, and if the road put him in front of her on the way, she would take him, and the asking and the avenging would be one act. The road put him in front of her by midday. She felt the living before she saw them, not with her sense, which only read the dead, but with the older animal thing that tells you the shape of the ground has changed. They were in a shallow draw ahead, where the dead country folded into a cut of gray rock. The warden and a knot of his people, moving fast and east, the way men move when they are carrying something that matters and do not want to be caught with it. Lovinea did not know what he carried. She knew only that he was running, and that a careful man does not run unless what he holds is worth more than the fight he is avoiding. She closed the distance the way she closed everything, fast and low, Tobin on her left, and for a moment she thought she might actually reach him. The draw worked against her, though the way the warden had surely known it would. The cut of rock forced her wide around a tumble of stone, costing her seconds, and the dead were thicker here. Drift dead the warden's group had stirred up passing through, now turning toward the warmth of her and Tobin. She had to read them and thread them even as she ran, and every dead thing she went around was a half-second the warden did not have to spend. He had not chosen this ground by accident. A careful man never chose ground by accident. Then the warden looked back and saw her, and made his decision in the time it took to turn his head. He did not stop, he did not turn to fight. He spoke to the figures around him, she was too far to hear it, and he kept moving east, and a piece of his group peeled off and turned back toward her while the rest closed around him and ran. "He's leaving people to hold us," Tobin said. "Yes," Lovinea's jaw tightened. "He's done it before, he won't fight me. He'll spend whatever he has to spend to keep running, and he'll never spend himself." She watched the knot of figures set themselves in the draw between her and the fleeing warden, and she felt the old fury rise and put it where it belonged, behind the work. Don't take it as an insult that he didn't stay. Take it as information. Whatever he's carrying east is worth more to him than killing 2 of the watch. Remember that. It matters later. What he had left to hold them was the thing she had learned to dread, and beside it, the thing she had not expected. There were 5 living men, hard interior fighters, fanning out across the draw with blades drawn. And there was one of the dead that stood too straight. She felt it on her sense, and her sense told her it was wrong. Dead, certainly dead, but not drifting, not mindless, holding its place in the line of living men like a soldier among soldiers. One of the thinking dead. The kind the warden kept and did not waste. He had left her 5 men and one of his prized dead, which told her 2 things at once: that he respected her enough to leave a real obstacle, and that he did not respect her enough to stay and watch it work. "The dead one is mine," she told Tobin. "You hear me, whatever happens, the dead one is mine. You take the living, they're just men, you know how to fight men. Don't let them flank you, keep the rock at your back. And do not try to help me with the dead one. It will kill you in a heartbeat, and I will have to watch. Your job is the men, hold the men." Tobin started, "I can help with." "Tobin," she caught his eyes. "The instant I say it, not after, hold the men." "Holding the men," he said. Then the 5 living fighters came at them across the draw, and the thinking dead came with them, and there was no more time to teach. Lovinea went at the dead one first and fast, because the longer it lived the more chances it had to turn on Tobin, and a dead thing that could think was the only thing in the draw that might kill the boy faster than she could reach him. It met her like a swordsman. That was the horror of the thinking dead. It did not reach and grope like the drift dead. It fought, blade up, covering its lines, reading her. She came in with both swords, and it turned the first cut and gave ground and did not overcommit the way a mindless thing committed, and for 3 exchanges they traded in the gray cut of rock, and she learned its rhythm. It tried to take her shoulder with a short chopping cut, and she slid it off her left blade. It reversed into a thrust for her belly, faster than the drift dead ever moved, and she turned her hips and let it pass, and the point scored cold across her side instead of into it. It was reading her as she read it. Every time she showed it a pattern it adjusted, and that was the thing that made the thinking dead deadly. Not strength, not speed alone, but that it learned inside the fight the way a living fighter learned. She pressed it hard, looking for the quick kill, the lag step she had used before, and it did not give her the lag. It had learned that too. It kept its distance, traded with her, refused to overcommit, and she understood with a cold drop that this one was not trying to kill her. It was trying to keep her, hold her in place, spend her time. And it was working, because she could not finish it fast and she could not leave it to help Tobin, and that was the whole point of it. They broke apart, the 2 of them, circling in the gray rock, and in the gap between exchanges Lovinea took stock the way the work demanded even mid-fight. Tobin had the rock at his back and 2 of the 5 down, 1 dead, 1 clutching a ruined arm, but 3 men were still on him and he was tiring. She could hear it in the rhythm of his blade, the strokes coming a half beat later each time. She had a cut along her side and another starting on her shoulder, and a dead thing in front of her that would not be hurried and would not be left. She made the math and did not like it. Every second in this draw was a second the warden put more distance between himself and her. The dead one knew that. Whoever had set it to this task knew that. It was not here to win. It was here to cost her the thing she could not get back, which was time, and it was succeeding, and the longer she played its game the more completely it won even if she eventually put it down. Tobin, she did not take her eyes off the dead one. How's the leg holding? It's holding, Tobin called back. A grunt, a clash, the sound of him giving ground. They're not, ma'am, they're not really trying to kill me. They're just keeping me busy. I know, same here. Good reading, even now, even scared. She filed it to tell him later if there was a later. That changes what we do, we stop fighting their fight. The thing the draw taught Lovinea that she would carry into every fight after it was this: when the enemy wants you to take your time, you take theirs instead. She stopped circling the dead one and went straight at it, all out, faster and harder than was safe, spending the caution she had been hoarding. It met her, and because it had been set to hold rather than to kill, it fought defensively, gave ground, and that was what she wanted. She drove it back across the draw, toward Tobin and the three men on him, and she did the thing it did not expect because nothing in its careful holding pattern had accounted for it. She stopped fighting it as a duel and used it as a weight, shouldering it hard into the nearest of the men working Tobin. The collision tangled them, the dead thing and the living man, for half a second confused together, and in that half-second the fight stopped being two separate problems and became one, and one was something she could finish. The dead thing recovered first, because the dead did not flinch and the man did. It shoved the man clear and came back around to face her, and for one beat it was open, committed to the turn, the order to recover sent and the body still catching up. The lag. There it was, the thing it had spent the whole fight denying her, handed to her now because she had forced it to move faster than careful. She stepped into it, inside its reach, chest to chest with the cold thing, in the half-beat where the will had given the order and the dead meat had not yet answered. She put her right blade up under its jaw and into the brain. The thing driving it went out all at once. It dropped and was only a corpse. One, the dangerous one, down, and it cost her, because turning the dead thing into a weapon had meant taking her eyes off Tobin's fight for the seconds it took, and in those seconds, holding the men had gone wrong. She heard him cry out and turned. The shove had bought it and cost it both. The man she had driven the dead thing into was down or staggered. She did not stop to count which, but the other two had used the half-second of her distraction, and they had used it well, because trained men always use the moment your eyes went elsewhere. He had earned something, though, and she saw it even as she crossed to him, 2 of the 5 down by his own hand before they wore him under, against trained interior fighters, alone 19. It was good work. Not enough, the way good work so often was not enough out here, but good, and she would make sure he heard so if they lived to talk. They had worked him the way trained men work a single fighter, one drawing his blade wide to the right, pulling his guard, while the other came inside on the left. And Tobin was good but not yet fast enough to answer both, and the one inside had opened a long cut across his thigh. He had gone down to one knee with the rock at his back and the bright animal panic of someone who has just understood that doing well is not the same as winning. Lovinea crossed the draw before she had finished deciding to. She took the first one from behind, a blade through the base of the skull, no honor in it and none wanted. These were men who had cornered a wounded boy, and she felt nothing about the back of his neck. The second turned in time to get his sword up, and she went through his guard in 2 strokes, fast and precise and certain, the speed that was the truest thing she had. The last one standing, the staggered one, recovering from the dead thing she had thrown into him, saw the math change and ran, broke east after the warden, and she let him go, because chasing him meant leaving Tobin bleeding on the rock, and she was done today, spending the people in front of her to reach the man who kept running. Then it was quiet in the draw, and there was one dead thing and dead men in the dirt and a runner gone east, and Tobin was bleeding but alive, and the warden was a shape vanishing into the gray distance with whatever he carried still in his hands. She had won the draw and lost the man, again. She bound Tobin's leg herself, kneeling in the dirt, and he was quiet in the way of someone working hard not to show how much it hurt, and she let him keep the dignity of it and bound the leg tight. "You did well," she said, because it was true, and because he needed to hear the true version, not the kind one. 2 of 5 wounded alone against trained men, that's not nothing, that's good. You had to come help me, Tobin said. His voice was tight. You said don't make you watch, and then you had to leave the dead one too. I killed the dead one first so I could come help you. That was the plan from the start. You held the men long enough for me to do it. That's the whole job, Tobin. You did the job. She tied off the binding. Can you walk? I can walk, Tobin said. Then walk, the post is close. Whatever's there, I need to see it, and I need you on your feet when we do. He got up, the leg held, and they went the last of the way east, the wounded boy and the woman who had brought him, toward the silence where 3 of her people should have been. The outpost was gone, and Lovinea had built it, and standing in the wreck of it, she understood the guilt she had not been able to name. It was a good post. She knew it was a good post because she had designed the pattern herself, the dugout cut into the lee of the rock, the watch slit sighted to read the eastern approaches, the camouflage that had kept it hidden for the years it stood. She had walked young monitors through posts exactly like this one in the safe yards on the coast, and told them this is how you stay alive out there. This is how the watch keeps you. She had believed it. She had built the whole still watch on believing it, that if you were careful and you watched and you reported, the dark could be survived. The post had not been survived. It had been found and broken, and the 3 people she had trained and placed here were not in it, which was worse than finding them dead, because it meant the dead had taken them or they had run and not made it. Tobin stood at the edge of the wreck and did not say anything, and that was somehow the worst part. The boy she had brought, looking at what happened to the people she sent into the dark, with his own leg freshly opened by the same kind of danger. She had built a thing to protect people, and it had put 3 of her own in this ground, and she had brought a 4th out here to look at it, and the line between the founder of the Still Watch and the woman who got her people killed was thinner than she had ever let herself see. She had stood in front of rooms full of young monitors and told them the watch would keep them. She had meant it. She had designed the keeping herself, the posts, the patterns, the protocols, every piece of the careful machine that was supposed to let a person watch the dead lands and live. She had believed the way you believe the thing your whole life is built on, that careful was enough, that if she made the system good enough, her people would come home. 2 of them had not come home. They were here in the wreck of the good system she designed, and the system had not been good enough, and the not enough had a price, and the price was paid in the people who trusted her enough to walk into the dark on her word. She looked at Tobin, 19, bleeding, looking at the same dark, and the thought came all the way up before she could stop it. I told him the watch would keep him too. The guilt had a name now. It was not grief for the dead, though that was coming. It was the founder's particular guilt, the specific weight of having built the thing that sent good people to die and called it protection. She made herself look at the wreck the way a monitor looks at anything. Read it, don't grieve it yet, grief is for after. The guilt could wait too. Both of them could wait because one of her 3 was not here, and if one was not here then one might be alive and the living came before the dead. Always, that was the one rule that let you keep doing this work. The living come first. She read it, and the reading gave her one thing that turned the grief sideways into something she could use. 3 monitors had been posted here. She found sign of 2 of them in the wreck. She would not describe to Tobin what she found, and she folded it down small to grieve later, the way the work required. 2 accounted for. Not 3. She went over the ground twice to be sure, because being wrong about this would be a cruelty to hope. But the reading held. 2 of her 3 were dead in the wreck. The 3rd was not here, and there was sign, faint and days old, that one person had left the post on foot. Westward. Moving fast and alone, the way a monitor moves when a monitor is running for the coast with something that cannot be allowed to die in the interior. One of hers had gotten out. One of hers was alive 3 or more days ago, and moving west with whatever had cost the other 2 their lives. Someone got out, Tobin said, reading her face. One of them's alive. One of them was alive when they left here. That's not the same as alive now. But something had changed in her chest, and she did not bother to hide it from the boy, because he had earned the truth of it. But yes, one of mine is out there, carrying west whatever was worth 2 lives to learn. Which means the post didn't just die. It died sending someone home with the reason. She looked west the way the sign pointed, the way the runner had gone. The whole shape of the season turned in that moment, in the wreck of the post she had built, with the wounded boy beside her and 2 of her dead at her feet, and one of her people somewhere west and still running. Because she understood now what she was actually doing out here. She had come east hunting a man and chasing an answer. The man had run and the answer was here, written in the wreck. The Hollow King was real, the interior was organizing against the coast, and her people had died learning the edges of it. That was the answer. She had it. But the answer was not the thing that mattered anymore. The thing that mattered was the monitor moving west, the one who had been here, who had seen whatever there was to see, who knew more than the wreck could tell her, and was carrying it toward the coast on foot through the dead lands with at least a 3-day head start, and she had to assume, the same kind of hunters on their trail that the warden had left in the draw. One of hers was running for home with the truth, and the truth was worth killing for. The warden had proved that at Saltmere, the broken post proved it here. Whoever her runner was, they were not going to be allowed to reach the coast if the interior could stop them. She was going to reach them first. That was the new shape of it. Not the man, not the answer, her person, alive ahead of her, hunted. Reach them, get them home, get the truth to the coast through a living mouth instead of a broken post. "We're not going after the warden," Tobin said, not quite a question. "No, the warden runs east to whatever he serves. Let him. I'll have him another day on ground I choose." She was already moving, already west, already reading the days-old sign of the runner's path. "We go west, we find whoever got out of here before the thing hunting them does." "That's the job now, Tobin, that's the only job." "What if we're too late?" Tobin asked. She did not lie to him. That was the thing she had decided about Tobin somewhere in the draw, that she would not protect him with lies, because lies were how you got young people killed, certain of things that were not true. "Then we'll have been too late," she said. "And we'll carry it and we'll keep going, because the coast still needs what they know and we'll have to find another way to learn it." "But we're not too late yet. 3 days is a long head start and it's also just 3 days. People walk slower when they're hunted and bleeding. So do we, and we're not bleeding much." She glanced at his leg. "You're not bleeding much, tell me if that changes." "It won't," Tobin said. "It might," she said, "tell me anyway." They left the broken post behind them in the gray afternoon. The founder of the Still Watch and the boy she should not have brought and would not now leave behind, walking west into the dead lands after one of their own who was, somewhere ahead of them, putting one foot down and then the next, and running for a coast that did not yet know it needed him. Lovinea did not look back at the post. Looking back at a thing you had decided to leave was a waste of a turn, and she had 2 of her dead behind her in it and could not afford to look back at them and keep walking, so she did not look back. She kept the runner in her head and the boy on her left and the dead at her back, and she walked west, toward the one of hers she still might save.